Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to YA Fireside. I hope you all are staying safe and sane in the midst of this week. Thankful to be back together again. We've got a bunch of really cool people who are hanging out with us tonight. We are coming together around the virtual fireside. Just want to remind everyone that was the intention when Ebony, our YA director, and myself came together and talked about what we wanted to do for young adults. We really just wanted to create a space where we could come together, where we could have a low-key experience, talk about things that are on our hearts, and also talk about things that are indeed meaningful. We all want to gain tools, figure out ways that we can live out the life that Jesus has called us to better ourselves, our families, our friends. And YA Fireside is a chance for us to come together and talk about things related to all of that. So tonight, specifically, we will be focusing on this idea of happiness versus contentment. Right now, in the midst of the pandemic, I think it's very important that we narrow in on just exactly what those differences are between happiness and contentment, especially given that all of us, in one way or another, have experienced some sort of loss during this time. The last, what has it been, 7, 8 months since the pandemic hit here in the US? We've probably either lost someone that we know, or someone that we know lost someone that they knew. Or perhaps it's that we've lost a job, or our job has changed quite a bit. Maybe our daily routine has just had to alter quite a bit as well. In some way, we've all had to cope with change and happiness and what it takes to be content. Those two things, I think it's important that we dig into that tonight. So that's what we're going to do. But before we get going, I would like to just take a moment, as we always do, pray and welcome in the Holy Spirit to this place, no matter where you might be tuning in from, if that's from your car or your living room or your bathroom, whatever it is. God can meet you where you are. Let's go ahead and bow our heads and pray now. Lord God, thank you for being the God who is present, who will always meet us where we are in the midst of whatever challenges we might be facing. As we explore this idea of happiness, which a lot of us chase after in the United States for sure, versus contentment, we ask you to give us wisdom, discretion, understanding. We ask you to help us wrestle with this topic and to just feel it out. We may not have all the answers, but perhaps we have some questions, and that's a good place to start. Be with us, Lord, direct our lives, and comfort us. We pray this in your Son's name. Amen. All right, so I want to go ahead and start inviting these great cool people we have with us. I can see them behind the scenes, but you cannot, but you are about to. First up, we have Chelsea. What's going on, Chelsea?
Hi, how you doing?
Oh, I'm great. How are you?
I'm fine.
All right.
Hello, everyone.
We also have Martine with us. What's going on, Martine? Oh, you're muted, Martine.
Good. Now I've unmuted.
What's up? All right. Arthur is also with us here.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
What's up? So this is our crew that we've got. We're going to be talking about happiness versus contentment tonight, how to really cope with loss and any type of disappointment in the midst of the pandemic. But before we dive in, there's this pretty interesting technique that Brene Brown has been using in her online meetings. Have you heard of Brene Brown? Any of you? Or anyone in the chat?
Okay, I want to say yes.
Okay, she's a psychologist and she does a lot of work with organizations. And she came up with this 2-word check-in, basically because she herself, with the teams that she had been working with, she was burned out. She realized that her teams were burned out as well. And with this pandemic, there was just no way, it felt like, to for everyone to adequately deal with the stress they were under. But everyone was facing it, everyone was feeling it. And sometimes just acknowledging that can be really important. Now, in a work environment, often it's not like we can sit around and just hear everything that everyone is facing all at once. So she came up with this 2-word check-in. And the idea is that you say your name, you say that you're checking in, and then you check in with 2 words that describe how you're doing. So I'd love for us to do that. And I hope that those of you tuning in, watching online, will steal this and use it in your personal lives, in your workplace, because I don't think these online meetings are going to go away anytime soon. I think that our world has changed for good in that respect. So I'll go ahead, do it first. My name is Jordan. I'm checking in. I'm feeling excited, and I'm hungry. So whoever's next.
I'll go. I'm Chelsea, and I'm checking in, feeling anxious and thankful.
Awesome.
I'll go next, everybody. I'm Arthur. I'm also checking in, and I would say I am tired, but also excited like Jordan because it's almost.
Cool. Love it.
And I'm Martine, the last one. And I'm feeling, I'm still trying to decide. Like, it's so many emotions to put it in 2 words. So I'm going to choose the 2 ends of my spectrum here. I'm feeling excited, just like Jordan. And I'm feeling optimistic as well. So I'm kind of like in my launching moment right now. So yeah.
All right. Launching moment. I like it. Very cool. Yeah. So thanks for checking in. Thanks for humoring me. I do think that that's something that's useful. At least I've found it to feel pretty good whenever I've done it in different meetings and whatnot. So with that, I did want to invite you all to just share a little bit about yourselves before we get into this topic. Happiness versus contentment. Could you share what that means to each one of you as it relates to maybe something that you're going through right now in your lives, or just what is bringing you to this conversation, essentially? Why does this matter to you? And tell us a little bit about yourself with that. So with that, I'm going to invite Arthur to kick us off, talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, it's definitely something that's I would say recent. I'm actually a newlywed. My wife is actually still working her shift at Advent Health South, so I'm hoping she'll get off soon and maybe she'll be willing to join. But we've been married over a month now, a little over a month. Yeah, so
Yeah,
definitely happy about that. And in
Yeah.
terms of happiness versus contentment, from the planning stage, when I had proposed to her, I guess almost a year and a half ago now, it was all happiness, butterflies and everything, and then COVID hit, and so planning a wedding during a pandemic has been difficult. We didn't get the dream wedding that we thought we would have, but in terms of God coming through, He definitely came through in a big way. So we definitely feel that sense of contentment, which for me means like pretty much having peace, and having the sense of like, okay, like we were able to go through it, even though it may not be what we had dreamt of. We still appreciate the actual experience that we shared together in that time. So that's a little bit of what it means to me. And I won't take up any more time. I'll let somebody else talk.
Don't all jump at once.
I did wait to the last one, so I'll go second this time. So I guess we've already shared my name, Martine's on the screen. But a few things about me. It's funny. I guess one way to describe yourself is your place in life, like where you are in life. So at that moment, I'm a mother of two. I still want to consider them toddlers, in case they come rushing in here. And I'm still a student. I began my education track, I guess, when I was in kindergarten, but really speaking of college, and now I'm in graduate school, just wrapping that up. So I'm on the back end of that, actually working on my research project to finish that out. So I'm kind of in that excited time where it's like, yay, I get to practice, what I've actually been learning all these years. And then I'm also working in a big organization, a big hospital, Florida Hospital, Orlando, or Advent Health Orlando, I should say, sorry, where there's just a lot going on at all times. So, and then I also started a little business as well through this pandemic. So it actually launched a little bit before that, but I'm still, striving through and trying to get it, to where it's on its potential, great potential. So I kind of just in all that right now. So to say all of that, it sounds more like I'm stressed than happy. I'm stretched thin or overwhelmed, but at the same time, I still can define that sense of happiness. The happiness in that I'm not sedentary. I'm moving. I'm making future goals accomplished. I'm accomplishing the things to get me to my future goals now, and that I'm at a place where I feel a sense of contentment in that happiness, to where I'm not super excited just yet because I haven't reached that final straw or haven't had that sense of accomplishment, but that contentment, it's like kind of in the middle where I'm not sad, but I'm also optimistic, but I'm accepting of the things that are not happening right now. The things that are different because of our new normal, per se, the things that we had to adjust in order to continue to reach our goals. Contentment is accepting those things, I think, but still being, looking forward to that future happiness and knowing that there are still things that I can do to change.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Sorry.
Great to hear. Really cool about your business that you're launching. And Arthur and Lonnie, definitely a big congrats to you both getting married and taking that plunge here, even in the midst of the pandemic. Chelsea, could you share a bit?
Yeah, so as we talk about a little bit about ourselves, a lot of people at Patmos know I'm a chef for a living. That's what I do. I love to cook. And this year has been so crazy, I guess. So I'm in the middle of, when Martine talked about launching a restaurant, actually, that is supposed to open, I say, in a few weeks, or by the end of the month, I should say. And through this process, people generally describe me as a happy person. Chelsea, she's always happy. Like, that's what people generally think. And what I have come to realize, especially between me and God and just my journey as an entrepreneur, that the emotions just ebb and flow. I mean, like, when people talk about emotional roller coaster, you have these times where you're so happy because you're making progress, or little achievements, or, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is finally happening, like you mentioned, getting out of college and setting out to do what you plan to do. So those moments of happiness, when it's all coming together. But then there's contentment, I feel like, is just the big picture. And remembering that I had a couple things happen, I guess, this year. And it kind of makes me smile because I always felt like I was behind based on my goals, I guess you could say. So I had my 30th birthday last month, and I'm like, look at God. Like, I didn't know I would finally be opening a restaurant, much less in a pandemic.
By 30.
By 30.
Right.
I was like, oh, I want to be like a 20-year-old entrepreneur or whatever. And, I kind of hit it by 29. Like, so without going too deep into my story, that's kind of where I am right now.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. You made me think. I was wondering, because you obviously had to adjust, Chelsea, in your experience. Really, I mean, all of you. You kind of had to make some pretty big adjustments. You had different moments that you were looking to celebrate. Yeah, that's right. We definitely want to taste that food, Chelsea. Whenever you make it. Actually, I've had some experience. I think I've already had one of your meals at a pastoral appreciation, which was so good. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, it really was. But you've all had to adjust in different ways and to, in the midst of whatever big moments that you were looking to, or things that you're planning out, looking to make happen, you had to shift. So I was curious, how was that in terms of, did you feel like you had remained fixated on things not being normal, or as you had planned? How was that making that shift? And anybody can answer that. Chelsea can, but anyone else can too.
I feel like I can speak on that a little bit because I've actually changed jobs twice. Like, I changed jobs during the pandemic, I guess. And it's funny because I started out in healthcare of sorts in the food service department at the beginning of the year, and ended up transitioning out of a hospital, which I was very thankful, because I don't know, it was kind of scary for me. I'm not clinical, so I was like, all these COVID precautions, I was like, I want to get out of here. But I ended up transitioning to senior living, and tons of precautions there too, if not more so. And I began thinking about, I guess, the obstacles, I guess, in a way, because doing a lot of heavy, like, catering too, like events were over. And you were talking about, fixation on the...
Yeah, talking about fixation on things maybe not going as normal or as planned.
Right. So it's like you're constantly, for those of you, especially like in healthcare, it's really in your face that nothing's normal, like, anymore. And working at it, I guess, and thinking about it, it kind of sparked creativity for me, because it's like, okay, how do we work around this? So, but sometimes that does lead you to keep looking at the problem that you're trying to work around. It's kind of, I don't know, you got to go with it. You have to roll with it, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I definitely, I think that's what it is. Just keep it rolling, no matter what. Because, and I really was excited when you said that one point, the one word creativity. It really, really opened up, I think, a lot of people's creativity, because we were facing something that was so new, so different, that unless you thought outside of your box, unless you thought outside of normal, you weren't going to make it. So I think a lot of those who still continue to keep it rolling, keep things moving, it's because they started to let their creativity spark. They decided to tap into that. And I know for mine, yes, for sure. That's the business I'm trying to launch is called Creation Events. And then my t-shirt company, the t-shirt company is Creation Events Pressed. And the idea behind that is all on creativity. I get asked all the time, what type of events do you do? And I'm like, you tell me what you need done and we're going to create it for you, So there's no limitation on, oh, I'm sorry, I only do weddings, I only do banks, I only, I'm literally, I leave that open to, whatever the time is calling for. And that's what I'm doing. So now I'm like in a whole nother different type of program I never thought I'd ever be doing with this, but when you continue to let your creativity go ahead, of you, and it definitely continues to open those doors to where when someone is thinking of doing something, they're like, well, I need a really creative person for this one, so that's where it is.
I would say for me, I guess the viewpoint that I have is maybe a little bit different for me and Lonnie, in that when we were first planning, our wedding, in terms of the expectations we had, for her, it was trying to put together this dream wedding. And it was my job to kind of help fulfill that. Like, hey, I'm here to support you. I'm here to make this, the best day ever. And then with COVID coming through, it really just became about managing our expectations. And if I can be candid, I know for a while, I kind of felt a little bit angry and bitter towards God. Like, we've been faithful, in our tithe and offering. We've been faithful in our church going. We've been faithful in staying that straight and narrow path. And how could you do this to us? That kind of, logic, passed through our mind many times. And in the end, we just tried to see the good in it. And so it became about, trying to find support from our family, our friends, our church community. It became about, just trying to see, what they say, like the diamond in the rough, like what could we make of this experience that it wouldn't have been able to look like before COVID. And so I can say, in terms of that, one of the things that did come out of this experience, in terms of managing our expectation, was the ability to fully record our ceremony, which we wouldn't have thought to do beforehand, because we would have thought, oh, it's way too much money, or we would have thought, oh, you have to pay a videographer to just take a 5-minute clip, and who wants to do that? But through the experience, we have now in our archives a full recording of the whole ceremony, which, something beautiful that came out of kind of like a bad situation in terms of what we hoped was going to be our, dream day. And even though we had to kind of tailor down what we originally thought we were going to have, we still got something beautiful out of it. So that's kind of, I guess, my take on the question you asked originally about,
Yeah. That's something and I don't want to gloss over that point, because you certainly experienced some amount of disappointment. It sounds like. Am I right in that?
Yeah, for sure. And I would say my wife more so, because for her, and I'm sure I can speak candidly for her, she won't mind in saying that it was tougher because she comes from the island. She comes from the Virgin Islands. And so with the pandemic, hey, there you go. Tortola, I'll rep for her. Tortola's where she's from, BVI.
Oh, BVI, USVI.
Yeah. Oh, you from St. Thomas?
St. Croix.
St. Croix. Okay, that's cool. That's where her best friend's from, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. She's getting married next week, so shout out for her. Yeah. But I know for my wife, it was actually more difficult because she's from the islands. Her side of the family couldn't come to the wedding, so that means her parents couldn't come, her brothers couldn't come, her cousins, her aunts, none of them really could come. And so I know for her that was a big blow. And in terms of managing our expectations, it became, okay, well, if they can't come, how can we make it the best experience for her and for them while they're away? And so that's where the recording came into play. And then just kind of figuring out, like, okay, so maybe that means that we're doing, 2 different wedding celebrations. We're doing one here with the people who are here with us, and then we're going to go there, hopefully, next year, God willing, if things calm down, and have another celebration. So, yeah, it's definitely been a time for being flexible, a time to be creative, and definitely a time to just, kind of roll with the punches.
So those are some of the ways that you adjusted. It sounds like both of you were admirable in that, and maybe you felt some amount of, we got to roll with it, or what else are we going to do? We got to get married, and we want to have people involved in some way.
Right, and that's what's interesting for some people, and I'm not sure about Chelsea and Martine in terms of starting your companies. I know for us, one of the things that people tried to tell us to put on the table was postponing the wedding. And so I'm not sure if you guys would say, hey, this is really not a good time to start your company. And I know for me, it didn't sit well to postpone getting married. And I'm not sure what the experiences were for you ladies, in terms of, why you decided to start your company. But for us, we definitely wanted to just make sure that, hey, like, this is the date we had set. We had done this with the idea of starting our lives together, so we didn't want to change that no matter what the circumstance. If we were able to walk down the aisle and say our vows, that's what we're going to do. So I'm glad we were able to do that with the help of the people around us.
Yeah, I think you raised an interesting question. For you, it was you already had a plan that we're going to get married and we're going to find a way to do it. We just have to adjust. And for Chelsea, for Martine, I am curious, was that, did you have the plan already that you were going to do these respective things that you were doing, or did COVID present an opportunity?
I can definitely say that over the years, I've had to keep adjusting, because in my field, you have to give people what they want, pretty much. That's how it goes. So you can always have your dream, and I went from the end goal, like I wanted to do like a brunch place. Then I went to, okay, maybe I'll do a food truck, lower startup costs. So all the while, with every job that I've worked, I've always been trying to learn more skills, whether it be culinary skills or management, whatever, business skills. But all the while, I've been shopping for a location, whether it was a shared kitchen or a food truck or a standalone restaurant. I'm always looking for the right fit. And it so happened that the location that I'm moving into, getting ready to open, fit the needs I was looking for. And that was only a few months ago, to be honest. And I said, man, I got to get a spot like in this location. So as I started working on it, for those of you who don't know, I guess, or to share a little more about the restaurant that I am opening, is going to be a delivery and pickup type restaurant. It's like a delivery hub, I guess, if that makes sense, for like Uber Eats, Grubhub, DoorDash, all those type of apps. So you'll be able to order through the app. And it just so happened that during this year, sales on those types of apps have like skyrocketed. It's the new normal. I don't really have to explain to people or be like, oh, you should download the apps that you can try the food. Like, most people are already doing it. And now my restaurant is going to show up. So for me, it was more so kind of being aware, I guess, and always working on it in the background and always kind of adjusting to the trends. Because I remember, like, when I started at the senior living, during my interview, they said, we really want someone long term, and you sound like you're kind of entrepreneurial. And I said, well, I have a lot to do before that even starts. So I'll probably be here, a few years. And then like a few months later, I was like, I'm sorry, I have to put in my notice. The opportunity arose. And I guess it's go time. Like, tail end of 2020 turns out to be go time. And I never, like, you couldn't have told me at the beginning of the year that this was going to happen at this point in the year. So it's just crazy. So I don't know. The plan unfolded as it went. It turned out to line up, I guess, perfectly.
Yeah.
So
That's really good.
Yeah, Martine, what about you?
Mine was this was one of my senior year of graduate school. So for me, it's something I started 3 years ago. It's something that I stepped out and, just not really knowing what would come of it. And just kind of going in and saying, this is what I'm deciding to do. It was already a change from what my original path was. I graduated my undergrad at Oakwood as a biology student. And then through working in the hospital while I was a student, I continued on that path, and I found myself deeper in to one side of healthcare than the other. And so that's when it, kind of dawned on me to go down this path of doing healthcare administration. And literally it just fell into my lap one day. I was at work. I was working in one of the units. on the clinical side, and they had a process, and I got really excited about it. And I was like, whoa, it's a new process. It's, it's improving the old one. And so I went in, like I was doing it, they said, we got to do this every 30 minutes. So I was in there. It's like, I got a timer. I'm setting it every 30 minutes. We're going to review who the patients are, that are leaving, when are they leaving, just go into detail, on that process. And that's how I was discovered. Literally, someone came down to shadow that process, and, my life's never been the same again. So I think that really brought me to the point where I was like, for this, I'm going to put my all in there. And so I strove to, no matter what happened, my life changed so many times during the course of those 3 years, to where things look totally different. And I still kept pressing on. I remember saying that every time I sat down to speak to someone, my professors, I'm like, look, I'm still going through this. I went through undergrad, battling cancer. And when I was in my final year there, and I got through it and I finished. So I wasn't going to stop now. I'm going to keep going. And then I get to my final year. And the one place that I found, was I thought was my launching pad, now became ground zero for a pandemic. Like, what, now it was really like, wow, does the focus change, or we're not even looking at the same processes we were so excited about, all the things that we were working on in school, as we learned about, managing a healthcare system is now all shifted to how are we responding to COVID? Slowly each of our coursework, became more focused on what would your response be in this situation as an up and coming leader? What have you, in just reviewing different strategies that you're going to have to shift in the matter of a moment, just like that. We all know healthcare is constantly changing. But this was like a bomb, literally a bomb that fell, and it forever changed the way we do just about any little detail in the hospital. So at first it was scary. We had long, unpredictable hours at work every day. I found out that my role was not a role that would be what they call working remote or dismissed from the role or whatever. When I thought it was, I was like, oh, we're in an office. They don't need us here. And I never got a day off until I was sick during COVID, so complete opposite. We worked longer, harder, we're expected more, and that's when I realized, wow, office is not just sitting back and when, it's a holiday, we're off. It's, you've got to make sure that everyone's looking up to you. It's leadership. It's a role where when things are going down, you have to learn it. So at first it was hard, but then I realized that this was also the testing ground. This was also the where we could say, will your leadership skills make the cut for when something like this happens, when all of your processes have gone down the drain and nothing's working and you have to revamp things and start thinking differently. Will you be able to keep your team on goal, moving forward in line? And I think that kind of shifted.
I guess I'll unmute again.
Oh, sorry. But yeah. You said I muted?
Oh, I can hear you fine.
Okay.
Can everyone else hear?
I thought I heard something. It was just me. But yeah. So I think going through those changes and then realizing, like, it was really an afterthought. We hit graduation and I'm like, wait, what? Oh yeah, we're still graduating this year, like we're still, this was still our senior year, like it felt like we were starting school all over again, because now all of the things that we were learning before are now different, guys, we have a new way of learning, thinking of healthcare. And so it was like this weird feeling that I finished, but I didn't, like there's still more to learn now. There's still areas that we didn't even, touch up on, that we didn't have, because they were just not, they weren't even an area before this, now they are an area. So as we were going through graduation, as we were going through our final courses, going through those, we were learning about, we were adjusting it to COVID, to that response. And so I was excited that we finished, but more excited that, we kind of gained an extra, like, I feel like they should give us like a, master's of healthcare administration and COVID like specialist, like on top of like the others, like add a letter in for C19. So it's like MHASI C19, like certified,
Right.
So, yeah, but I think that was kind of cool. So that was like adjusting the excitement of not really getting to celebrate, but at the same time, adding on so many more badges there.
Okay, interesting. So what I'm hearing from all three of you, you described opportunities, milestones really that you seem to be looking forward to, moments of perceived happiness that you were anticipating and you expected them to kind of happen a certain way, potentially. And then, of course, the pandemic changed everything. And at least from what I was hearing, more so from Martine for Arthur, there was some disappointment involved on your end. And so I wanted to ask, with the changes that you both faced regarding your milestones, did you get a chance to grieve? And if so, how did you grieve?
Man, that's a good question. I will say personally, I'm not a good griever. I feel like maybe that back and forth I had with God, just kind of arguing like, man, how could you do this? Maybe that was like my way of really grieving. But I think because I'm such a logical person, or at least I'm like a realist. I'm like, hey, like this is how it is. You just gotta brush off your pants, move forward. I think for me, I just really became concerned for Lonnie because I didn't know what to do to support her. Like I knew there was nothing in my power I could do to bring her family over here from the islands. There was nothing I could do to make the day any better. So honestly, yeah, I don't think I personally found a way to grieve. I think instead I just tried to look forward. Like that was my way of getting past those roadblocks, if you will, or those challenges that I was facing. I just tried to look forward, like, hey, like better days are ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like there's been a lot of just having to kind of adjust as these things were happening, and then slowing down to really process what's happened and to feel the weight of it. Maybe there wasn't necessarily the opportunity, or I should say it felt like there was an opportunity because so much was happening all at once and we needed to adjust and figure out what we're going to do next, move forward. What about for you, Martine? Did you feel the need to grieve, and did you? Oh, Martine, I can't hear you.
I was saying actually until you said that and I thought back, I didn't realize I did. I was really sad. I fell into a deep depression and I think I put it on something else that probably wasn't it because it was so close to what happened. But the day of my graduation, when I was so excited, I was like, ooh, this is a graduation where I should have had like a big celebration. I thought about it from being in the middle of the program from the year before, like, yeah, I want to do a huge, having everyone there and things like that. And then when it hit me, it was the day of my graduation. I sent the link out to everybody. I had a good friend that I met to do a couple pictures of me in my cap and gown that I quickly, shot out via text with a link to watch the program. And then I realized where I was in the middle of my program, and of course I'm not there. They just flashed your name across a screen after all the officials were speaking. And I looked around and I was in a waiting room. I was at a waiting room in a mechanic shop watching my graduation service because that was the only available time to get my car fixed. And it just so happened to be the same time of graduation. And I had pushed off the idea of like a celebratory graduation that it didn't really dawn on me that much. So I was just like, dang, I'm in my graduation ceremony in the waiting room of a mechanic shop, on East Colonial. And it's not anywhere near the idea that I had to celebrate what was an accomplishment. And I didn't even realize it was so much of an accomplishment until I was listening to the words of our, school officials as they, try to just give us, appreciation and reminding us that despite the times that we were still able to accomplish something that was, big and major. And I was like, yeah, this is how I'm celebrating it. And then I had a friend that I was going to celebrate with that evening, and, they canceled on me. Something, came up and they weren't able to go. So it was just really just downhill, from there. And then I think that's when I sunk in, and I really had that moment where I was just grieving for a couple weeks. I was just so sad. I was in a dark place. I felt like, I didn't really do what I really did, So I think that part of it was where I felt sad. And I guess I did allow myself to feel that way because I wasn't pulling myself out of it. So,
Wow.
yeah.
I think that's really important that you did. And thank you so much for sharing. I think that is a big one line you said. I think it was, I felt like I didn't do what I did. I think you may have said it a little bit differently, but to go through all that work and to have done it, and then at the end to feel like I didn't because the celebration wasn't really a celebration. You were at a mechanic shop for your graduation. And that must have been tough. That must have been tough. I can see why you grieved. So what about Chelsea? Was there a time or throughout this that you felt a need to grieve? And if so, how did that go?
I feel like this is an interesting question based on, I guess, my day today. Okay. A little bit. I had set an opening date, and that date has already passed. And I feel like I dealt with that. And I'm like, that's okay. Like, I made all of my advertisements vague enough that, like, I don't know if you guys have seen it. If you follow me on social media, you see it. Like, November is coming. Sorry, I'm holding a pen. November, right? And, COVID strikes again. The health department is backed up. I'm waiting on a health inspection. I had to expedite a lot of things. Sorry, these comments are making me laugh. I had to expedite some things to really make this happen. Because like I said earlier, I put in my notice at my job. Like, I've just solely been working on this. And so I'm talking with the person I'm working with, whatever, coordinating. And we've been a little behind on like the building permitting and stuff like that. Health department is backed up. And now it's looking like, I was like, okay, maybe November 30th. But now it's looking like it might not be till December. And this is the first time I'm saying, it's like some of my family doesn't even know that the date might be pushed back. I haven't got the chance to tell them. I've been busy. And I guess now that you asked me about it, maybe I'll grieve tonight. But I've just been trying to just keep going. I'm like, you know what? Like, the way I see it, because I've always thought like this has kind of been a dream deferred in the grand scheme of things. No matter when I start, like you said, like starting is still the accomplishment, I guess, or is when it begins, it begins. And when it begins, it will be the right time. And it won't be so bad to eat my words and be like, hey guys, sorry, December, yeah, so there's that, all those emotions. I guess with that's like, okay, well, what can I do? Like, it's kind of out of my hands. I can't like go up to the health department and be like, hey, put me first on the list. Like, I promise my kitchen like is ready to be inspected. Like, some things you gotta roll with the punches. And I guess when I think about the grieving, I start to be like, don't be so into yourself. There's a lot of, like, I think back to the reason that things are delayed and it takes you back to COVID. And it's like, at least I don't have it. At least I'm still here. This will start. It'll just start later than I expected. More time to prepare, to be more flexible, I guess, too, because I would be at work right now instead of on this program. I would be missing out. So, God is good.
You've reframed your perspective.
Yes, and that's, I guess, maybe how I grieve. I might cry a little later, but not right now.
Okay. All right. Thanks for sharing, Chelsea. So I'm curious, now that you've talked a little bit about those moments of happiness that you were looking forward to, and then talked about some of the grief that or the disappointment that you had experienced or delayed, allowing yourself to feel maybe in some of your cases. Are you content? Are you content with the way that your milestone went about, and are you currently content with your present situation?
Yes, I know I am.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
After a while, I was just like, wait, you can't take away 3 years from COVID, 3 years of work, because of one pandemic. So, yeah, I definitely, I found excitement in that, that no one can take away thank you. No one can take away the accomplishment. And of course, I thought of that saying. It was so weird, but I had heard the commercial coming up as people were getting ready for school again for this fall semester. The mind is a terrible thing to waste. That's what sparked me back out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't waste my mind. It wasn't that I didn't get to celebrate, it's more that, it's there and no one can take away what you've already, strategically placed into, your brain. And that's what you do through education. And so that's why I was like, it didn't matter, if I celebrate by myself or if I celebrate next year, walk down the whole thing again. In another opportunity to do that, at the end of the day, it's not going to add to my degree and it's not going to take it away either. That accomplishment was already done. And so I think that's what really helped me to kind of come out of that grief and then come to a sense of contentment, where I think of this happiness versus contentment on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 would be that depressive area and 10 will be the super happy, excited. And then contentment is like right in there in the middle to where, exactly. To where we can, we're at that place where it's like a balance, where I'm not sad, I'm not depressed, I'm not super excited, where it's on some other end of the spectrum or extreme, but I'm happy because 1, I accomplished something and that can't be changed. And 2, I've still set the platform to be able to create a very exciting future. So I still have some excitement to look forward to. So that part of it has really helped me to reach that place of contentment.
Great. What about Chelsea? Are you content? And if so, how did you get there?
I feel like I am
It's okay if you're not.
I feel like contentment is kind of like a lifestyle, I guess, if that makes sense, or it's like a constant, but it's the happiness maybe that ebbs and flows. But I think similar to kind of like what Martine was saying, like the launching pad is still there, and I feel like lately, kind of like how I checked in, and lately what's been coming to my mind, not just because it's November, but like I'm thankful, I guess. And I think that's where my contentment comes from, is counting my blessings, because even the amount of things that had to come together for me to even secure this project, like secure the location and just everything that had to fall into place in like a small amount of time, especially when I still was working. It's kind of like she said, you can't take that away from me. Like, and this, no matter what, will still be a memory. And it's not really a sad memory. Like, it'll always be happy. I'll be like, oh, remember whatever date, like, that this thing opens, like when a year from now, 2 years from now, 5, 10, whatever, I'll be like, remember this date in 2020? I'm claiming it 2020. This is not pushing to 2021. In 2020, like when I started that restaurant, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm just thankful, I guess. And that's the source of my contentment, is I really believe in counting your blessings. Like, anytime that I feel like I need to come out of a less than happy place, I'm like, okay, one good thing that happened today. And it'll be the simplest thing. I love the sunshine. Oh my gosh, I had a sunny day. Okay. And then you realize like more and more things that happened that were blessings. And just being thankful to even have the opportunity. So it's like, okay, maybe it didn't go exactly how I planned, but sometimes that's even an opportunity for things to be better. So I would say I'm in a place of contentment and I have unhappy moments. But then it's like, you know what? There's a bigger plan. In the big picture, this is a happy occasion. So.
Love it. I think you highlighted some important things. One of them, the distinction between happiness and contentment. And I agree with kind of your assessment there that happiness is more like a feeling. Feelings ebb and flow, they change. And contentment is more so a state of mind.
Yes.
And one of the ways to get there, it sounds like you were describing, was counting your blessings, practicing gratitude, thinking about all of the things that we can be thankful for, and then that mindset begins to shift in the midst of that. So thank you for sharing that. What about last but not least, Arthur, could you tell us about where you are with contentment? And again, just because Martine and Chelsea answered that they are, you don't have to say yes. No peer pressure.
No, I'm on board with both Martine and Chelsea, and I can relate to what Chelsea was saying in terms of contentment being that lifestyle. And I know earlier I said, like, for me, it really meant having that sense of peace, and I feel like God really gave that to both me and Lonnie before the wedding, and it's definitely carried, throughout the process after the wedding now and into the early stages of our marriage. So yeah, we've had those happy moments, we've had those sad moments, and we've definitely been able to have that sense of peace and contentment throughout it all. We can only do that because of who God is and who He continues to be in both of our lives. So definitely content as well. No complaints here.
Love it. Well, we are at our time for tonight, but I really think this is a solid stopping point. We highlighted the difference between happiness, contentment, and talked about gratitude as a tool that can be used. Any of you watching online, practicing gratitude can lead us into that mindset of contentment. Even when we are unhappy, I think it's quite possible to be unhappy and content at the same time. So I just want to thank the three of you for coming out here, for sharing your stories with us. Your resilience is inspiring. All of you adjusted to some pretty big disruption that you faced in the past year. And it's definitely a blessing to see that all of you are moving forward. You've all embraced a content mindset, which I think says a lot. And certainly we want anyone who's watching online and anyone who may watch this later, because that's totally a possible thing since it'll be up on Facebook and YouTube. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Go ahead and send us a DM on Facebook, or you can hit us up on our Instagram page @PatMissYA. We are happy to talk with you further about this topic if you're interested. And again, just thanks, guys, for joining. And what I'd like to do now before we hop off here is just take a moment to pray together, and then we will jump into the rest of our weeks/almost weekend. So I'll go ahead and pray if you all will just bow your heads with me. Lord God, thank you again for this conversation. I think an important one around happiness, contentment, and dealing with those feelings of disappointment whenever things don't go the way that we quite imagined them to. I think a lot of us have faced that this year in 2020, and probably a reality is that it will continue in some ways into 2021. God, I ask that you would give us the courage to stay at your feet, to ask you for that peace which surpasses all understanding. to take time to tangibly perhaps write down 5 things that we're grateful for at the end of each day. Or maybe we do it first thing in the morning. Lord, we need to do more to be intentional around our contentment, because there will be moments of unhappiness. You have told us this. I do think that we live in a time where there is darkness, and that time is probably not going to let up. And we need you, God, to help us not to endure that time, not only endure, but to find ways to thrive and be a light to other people. And I thank you for the experiences and the stories that Arthur and Chelsea and Martine have shared here tonight. I pray that they continue to be lights to your people and to those who don't know you yet. And I pray that we all might take some valuable insights from their experiences and walk in a content way and give ourselves the space to grieve if we need to do so as well. We love you and thank you for the person you are, and ask that you go with each one of us as we move forward on our respective paths. In the name of your Son, Jesus, we do pray this prayer. Amen.
Amen.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining again. Again, Patmos YA Fireside happens every 2 weeks on Thursday at 7 p.m. So we look forward to seeing you all again in a couple of weeks. And Chelsea, Arthur, Martine, this is not the last we'll be seeing of you, I don't think. We'll be reeling you in again for some programs probably in the future. Until then, though, thanks again, everybody. Take care.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.